And hello. And did you know you have taken one breath since I started talking? Possibly two. None of them was a decision. Today will take roughly 20,000 out of you, and 80 years will take something close to 600 million. And that is the whole allocation. There is no mechanism anywhere in your body for adding to it. A brain deprived of oxygen begins taking damage within minutes of an interruption. Welcome to the Human Meme Podcast. I'm David Bowles, and today we're going to talk about how I have spent the last stretch of my working life trying to answer a question that sounds like it should take an afternoon. What does it mean to say that something breathes? Because a cave does it. Wind Cave in South Dakota moves air in and out of a hole in the ground hard enough to take a hat off a man's head, in and out, on a rhythm you can stand beside and feel. A fire does it. Anyone who has watched a hearth has seen a flame draw and settle. A bellows does it, a bagpipe does it, and a machine at a bedside, in an intensive care unit, does it about 14 times a minute for somebody who cannot. So which of those is breathing, and which is only a good impression of it? I wrote a book to find out. It is called Tidal Volume, and it is out now. The method is the part I want to tell you about, because it is the part that surprised me. I did not begin by deciding what breathes. I began by writing down a rule in the first chapter, in the open, where a reader can see it and argue with it. 2 clauses. A thing breathes if it runs a cycle in 2 phases, where one phase is paid for and the other comes back free out of a store. And it breathes only if running that cycle spends something the thing cannot get back. Then I applied that rule to 22 candidates and reported what happened. 9 of them passed: a lung, the heart behind it, yeast, a tide, a variable star that swells and shrinks on a clock of 5 days and 9 hours, and the entire northern hemisphere of this planet, breathing once a year, visible as a sawtooth on a chart kept from a mountain in the Pacific since 1958. 12 of them failed. Fire, the bellows, a loaf of bread rising, blown glass, where a bottle 2,000 years old still holds the shape of one person's exhalation, and a whistled language in a Turkish valley, where people speak to each other across 2 kilometers of air. And one is left open, which I will come back to. Here's the sentence in the book I would keep if I could keep only one. Where is what happens to a thing while it is being used? Breathing is what a thing has to keep doing to remain itself. That distinction is the whole test. A bellows wears out. Every stroke moves it closer to the day it stops sealing. But leave a bellows alone on its hook and it simply waits. Leave a lung alone and it stops being a lung within minutes. Now the part I did not expect to be writing about on a podcast. 4 of the 22 verdicts came out against the answer I wanted. I wanted the fire. There was a chapter half built around it, and the rule refused it. The cave I wanted even more, because it is beautiful, and because the tradition of the Oglala Lakota had described that breathing hole with more accuracy than any 19th century surveyor managed. The rule refused that too. It refused the glass, which I loved most of all, and it admitted a geyser over my objection, which felt, I will be honest, like being contradicted by my own instrument in front of witnesses. I printed all 4. I printed them because a rule that only ever produces the answer its author wanted is a preference with a lab coat on. Twice in the writing, the rule itself had to be rebuilt because a case would not sit still. And I printed those 2 occasions as well. If you want to know whether a book is telling you the truth, look for the places where it lost an argument with itself and left the loss on the page. The chapter I did not expect to be the heart of it is about Copenhagen. August 1952. The Blegdam Hospital is admitting nearly 50 polio patients a day. Patients whose breathing muscles have failed are dying at a rate near 87%. There are not enough iron lungs in the country, and the ones they have are not working well enough. An anesthetist named Bjørn Ibsen proposes something that sounds like desperation. Open the windpipe, put a rubber bag on it, and have a human being squeeze that bag by hand around the clock for as long as it takes. On the 27th of August, he is permitted to try it on one patient, a 12-year-old girl named Vivi Ebert, who is dying that afternoon. It works. So they recruit medical and dental students, and those students sit beside the beds in shifts and squeeze. 1,500 of them took a turn before it was over, for 165,000 hours between them. Mortality was roughly halved within weeks. That is where the modern intensive care unit comes from. Not from an invention. From a room full of 19-year-olds doing by hand what a body could no longer do for itself, one squeeze at a time, for months. The one I left open is the universe. My rule cannot get it through the first clause on either half, and the final chapter says so, and then admits that the refusal rests only on what the measurements looked like when the book went to press. Out in the desert, the instrument that will settle it finished its map in April, and the analysis is expected next year. So, a reader holding that chapter may already know something I could not. Here is how the book ends. The account is never closed. The lung stops with the last transaction incomplete, and the chamber it stops in is not empty. Tidal Volume. What breathes and what only looks like. Breathing is available now as a Kindle edition and as a paperback. And there is a free PDF of the whole book at bowlesbooks.com for anyone who would rather read it that way. It runs 485 pages in print, with an appendix setting out all 22 verdicts, a glossary, a bibliography, 20 questions for discussion, and a full index. You have taken about 120 breaths since we started. You did not decide on any of those either. For the Human Meme Podcast, I'm David Bowles, wishing you a full evening and a breathless tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Be a human meme